Head on over to the networknurse.shop and use NWN webinar to get a 10% discount on any item of your choice. Promo code is only valid for the month of October, so you better hurry up. Interested in getting a certificate for this event? Handouts? A free ebook? Then make sure you're registered. If not, don't worry, there's still time. But simply head on over to the Network Nurse Facebook event page and follow the instructions. Then comment the name you used to register in the comment box of this live video. You'll receive an email with all the freebies within the next day. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first ever webinar. We are talking about all things that you can learn in the field, and we're going to give away some handpicked tips for fresh graduating nurses. My name is Tonika Bruce, and I'm a registered nurse. And after nursing school, I went on to obtain my master's degree in science and nursing. And I moved on just a little bit further than that, and currently right now pursuing my doctoral degree in nursing practice. And you might say, how or why in the world are you doing that? I guess I'm just a lover of life. And also, it's just full of limitless possibilities. And education is one of the things that I'm most passionate about. And so throughout my journey, not only as a nurse, but also as a basketball coach and a business consultant, I've always had this need to challenge myself and also achieve greater and greater things. So we're here now. And through all of that, I've just simply mastered the art of inspiring and motivating myself. And so I thought, okay, wait a minute, let me share this with other people. And my job as a nurse is to help other people. And that just so happens to be my purpose and passion as well. And so when you get a chance to really help others become their very best, it's probably the best satisfaction that I can think any one person can have. So after that, I got a chance to just write a little bit and co-authored a #1 best-selling book. And it's entitled Limitless Success. And on there, I detail a few things that will help you. It's just kind of a screenshot that will teach you to become successful. And just recently launched Relentless Pursuit. That's pretty much a guide to every action-packed thing you can think of and that you can do in order to achieve success, regardless of your goals, regardless of your profession. And from all this, I've just dedicated my life to transforming people's lives through, again, one-on-one coaching, books, coaching programs, and many other things like this webinar. And in my program, we work towards just changing the mindset and the view and how people think of themselves, which in turn positions you for great success and fulfillment. And that's very important throughout your nursing career. And it doesn't even matter if you're a nurse and just in general, but nursing specific. And we'll get into that, just how to equate nursing with other things and why that's so important, because you need to have a foundation. So today's event, it's one of the channels that I can do what I do, which is helping others to become successful. And I just try to make what I do accessible to all of you. So in the webinar, we're going to learn some things that sometimes it takes nurses months and years of experience to learn and before they discover. So we want to make sure that you're in a comfortable place. You've got notebook and pencil or pen to take notes, and be ready to just take some notes and also write down some questions that you might have for later on in the discussion. And then we'll get ready to begin soon. So once again, welcome to our first ever webinar. It's entitled Things You Can Only Learn from the Field, Handpicked Tips for Fresh Graduate Nurses. So we've divided this webinar into two categories. The first one is dedicated to fresh graduate nurses that are looking for a job or their career. And many of us, we've all been there. And you don't know what to do. You're just kind of trying to find your way. Well, the second thing that we're going to talk about is you've recently landed a job. And I think that that's very important to break down into categories. So we're going to do that today. So let's begin with our first topic for job seekers. The very first thing is give yourself a break. If you've found getting into nursing school hard, then landing a job is going to be much harder. And if you can think back into how difficult it was to get into nursing school, I mean, it's like you get everything from background checks to asking a million questions to taking a million prereqs. By the time you get there, you're already exhausted. And then you get to nursing school, and then you can't wait to see what you're going to get. And so understand that sometimes you have to give yourself a break. So if you want to take a break and you can afford to do that, then go ahead and do it. Taking a break is a life skill that we have to master, period. It doesn't matter who you are and what's your profession, but it's a life skill to know when to listen to your mind and also to listen to your body, because you're going to be surprised at how many health practitioners actually neglect their health. I mean, nurses, we're the worst patients. And so we take care of ourselves after everybody else. And we do all of these things before we take care of our own self. So while you're young, practice taking care of yourself. And then next, do your homework. There are many types of nurses, and there are so many different kinds of specialties. Whether you want to work in the hospital, whether you want to work in long term care, you have to ask yourself, do I prefer taking care of the elderly, maybe in a nursing home or assisted living facility or local care facility? And maybe perhaps your dream is being a travel nurse or a school nurse. Maybe that excites you. Maybe you want to be a neonatal nurse. So the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, what is it that I want? What kind of environment do I want to work in? And do you want to be near your family? Do you want to be near your friends? The distance to driving back and forth to work is also an important thing. And that might sound simple, but you absolutely have to ask yourself, what is it that you want? And then after you do that, then you need to do your research. I can't emphasize how important this part is, because there's so much information that's just readily available. There's no excuse for not knowing about what's out there and what's to expect. To a certain extent, I mean, there's blogs, there's vlogs, there's documentaries. I mean, you might even interview people that you don't know. And there are people always willing to help, especially in the field of nursing. They're going to be willing to lend their opinion, whether it's good or bad. And you get a sense of the environment and also the area that you want to work in. And then look up a particular person in that field. If you don't just know anyone, just look up someone, send him or her a text or an email, and then get in touch with some old professors that you might have. Maybe they can connect you to people in those areas. Maybe some career advisors from your school, or just about anyone is willing to lend their advice. Again, remember I said sometimes it might be good or bad, but you can at least get some information. And there's so many specialties and so many areas that you might want to work in. Sometimes I think it's funny how most of our job searches, they tell us that they're looking for fresh graduates, but the thing is that they end up putting at the end that they require certain experiences. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, overcoming your lack of experience. And I know that this frustrates people. I remember it frustrated me at some point, and it might even just demotivate you a little bit. But the truth is that you have to be creative at how you look at these experiences. That's the key. The career center at your nursing school, they might have partnerships with local hospitals. They might have partnerships with local facilities that look specifically to hire new graduates. Maybe even the place that you did your clinicals at. That's a place to start right away outside of nursing school. You also might want to think about internships or job shadowing programs because sometimes you might feel that you're actually overqualified for many of the positions. But the thing is that it's a great way to network and then also show potential employers that you're a great worker. And so if you're talking about nursing school, and think about this, a lot of the schools already have built into their program that you have to work as a CNA, that's a certified nursing assistant. And many of those jobs that you might think about applying for are key because you may want to apply for those positions before you finish nursing school. Sometimes they call those patient techs, depending on your area, because this is key, guys. These kind of positions, they give you such a great opportunity to observe nursing and how they work. Also, the things that they do. Watch how they interact with patients and just the overall care of patients because it may be something that it's not for you and you get a chance to kind of get this inside look. You also have medication aids, sometimes assistants, all of those things like doctor assistants, those things are just kind of this pre look into what it is that you're trying to get into. And they also have different positions that might require, maybe it's you want to work as a unit secretary or any of those things. You get a chance one way or the other to look into what you're about to go to, because now it not only talks to you and speaks volumes about the area that you want to work in, it also speaks volumes about, do you want to work for that particular employer? Because you get a chance to look how they interact with their staff, how they interact with their nurses and their aides. So that's important as well. When you're done with nursing school, you have a chance to talk with whoever is in charge, especially if you've done a good job, because that person can say, hey, you know what? This person works well. And you get this chance to say, hey, I'd like to get a job here. And they'll be glad to take you. Trust me, they will, especially a nurse. And then another option that might be available to nurses without a lot of experience is, for example, temporary or on-call positions, because those positions, even per diem nurses are needed. It's nurses, there's such a shortage. And so you might find that those positions require a lot less experience and allow you to work in a specific specialty or location, because in those specialties might be something that you already want to be in, but just because of this particular shortage, now you're talking about creating this opportunity for yourself. So now we're talking about let's talk about creating a hiring strategy. And what does that mean? We all know that searching for the right job already feels like a full-time job. I mean, let's be honest, you're trying to get your name out there and you're just sending your resume here, there, everywhere. And you're just applying. You're going on, all these different job search sites that you possibly can. And I can tell you right now, that's not going to work. Okay. That is not going to work out very well for you. What needs to happen, and you might think about this, is that you need to manage your applications and create a strategy. And this is where people really, really miss the boat. It doesn't matter if you're a nursing student. It doesn't matter if you are not a nursing student. It just matters that nursing graduates, and because if you create a strategy that's going to help you stay focused and help you stay organized, you'll be that much more ahead of everyone else. So what I want you to do is this. Before you start doing anything else, let's create a strategy and let's pay very close attention right now. So if you don't have a pen or a piece of paper, please get those things, because you need to pay close attention and write notes down right now. The most important things that new graduates all across the board they miss is you have to just master one thing, and it already will set you apart above everybody else. So if you're listening, make sure you got your super ears on and take notes. You need to hear what other people are saying. And what that means is you can hear people say, I put in hundreds of applications and nobody called me back. And before we even talk about your resume and whether it's appropriate, let's create a strategy. So, the very first thing, let's create a strategy. So, the first thing, number one, is write down how much actual time you can dedicate to applying for jobs. And yes, I said that. Write down how much time you can dedicate. And I don't mean just pop in your resume, open up one of these career search things and just attach it. What I'm saying to you is, and don't be like, what is this lady talking about? When are you available? What days, what times are you available to dedicate to your job search strategy? And let's say you're going to be available for 2 hours every day, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, then you need to say, okay, well, if we're going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and we're going to work from 8 to 10 a.m. Don't just say 2 hours. Write down and schedule your time, just like you scheduled your classes when you were in nursing school, or you scheduled your reading, your study groups, any of those things, whatever it is, block down your time in your calendar. If it's 2 hours, then block in 8 to 11. Well, genius, that is more than 2 hours. Yes, I understand that. Let's be honest. A lot of people aren't going to turn their phones off, or maybe you might be one of those people, you're glued to social media. So block out 3 hours, dedicate 2. And we're going to talk about that. But ultimately, let's block off some time for your strategy. So then what we're going to do now is we're going to create our strategy before anything else. And I want you to get out things like your license number and put it in a Word or Excel file. And you're going to keep that handy. And if you don't have Excel or Word, which I'm pretty sure at this point you have that, put it on a little sticky and write it onto your laptop. But put that in an Excel file, whatever that you have. Also, whatever other licenses like BLS, your basic life support, or your ACLS, whatever it is that you have in terms of certifications. It could be ServSafe. Whatever you have, make sure that you write that down and that you are prepared to enter that 1,000 times, okay? Big or small, it doesn't matter the certification, have it. And I'm not saying that you're going to use it, but make sure that you have it available, and also have your address down for every single employer, the phone number, and the person. Have all of those things down already ready, so you're not retyping, or going to go look it up every single time, okay? You can easily cut and paste this, and it's ready. Some applications actually ask you, what's the exact date that you were hired and the exact date that you stopped working there. This is very key, because some people say, well, I'll just guesstimate, and I need to just I think maybe it was May. I think, let me just put that down. They're vouch for me. But understand that sometimes employers will go and they'll take those exact dates and they will just verify that. And if it doesn't match up exactly with your employer, then they're already deeming that you're not trustworthy. So you don't want that to be the case. Okay. And if you don't know those dates, make sure that you call your former employers and get them. Because if you get to the point where they're doing a background check and you don't put it down right, then you've already lost the job. Okay. Your resume also needs to match up with the dates that you have. And that might sound minimal. However, understand that sometimes people fill out applications and they write down a different date and their resume says something different. So I'm saying right now, make sure that those things coordinate, and make sure that you can cut, copy, and paste, as well as having a printed copy of your resume in front of you each and every single time. Because sometimes you can't cut, copy, and paste. You have to type it as a text. So you want to have that in front of you in order to cut down on time, but also to make sure that you're being consistent with your dates and your information. So, one thing that I want to strongly suggest after you do that is to create a chart. Very important. This might sound a little strange or odd, but we need to create a chart. If you can master this, then you're going to be very successful in getting hired. There's no question. If you create this, then you'll have this visual representation of all of your application details. Again, we said it's a strategy. You can't go in there and just say, oh yeah, today I'll put in one application, or today. Some people say, well, I'll put in 20 applications today. Well, if you're putting in 20 applications and you can't remember where you put them in and who to follow up with and so forth, that's not going to be helpful at all. If you take the time to create a chart, then you've invested into it in a whole different way. So again, we've already talked about this in terms of having your information, but now let's have it on for every single place that you've applied. So the first column, you're going to put in all the job details, such as the application link and the position and the qualifications and the requirements and so forth. And then you're going to put location and contact details, and put in the status or the remarks. Sometimes applications will say filed, pending, reviewed, whatever. Make sure that you have that down so you can track it. These are very, very important. It's important because it allows you to create a roadmap, if you will, of your strategy and your job search, because they won't all be hires. Again, we want to think that they're going to be hires, but the follow-up is very important. And if you can't remember, or you're going to go search here, there, and everywhere, when you get that call, if you're not organized and you're not detailed, then you're already behind the other applicants. So then what I want you to do is I want you to put these things in order of importance. If the location is one of the most important things, then make sure that you check which one's closest to you. So that way you don't waste your time. You wouldn't want to spend an hour filling out an application for one employer, and it's an hour and a half away, and your most important aspect is to be 15 minutes away from work. So you already prioritize based on what's important to you. And that opportunity is in front of you to be able to really invest more into that particular job. Okay, so this is a difficult one for people, and we're going to talk a little bit about putting yourself out there. So you wouldn't really want to rely solely on applying to job postings. Even our strategy is great, our organization is great, all of those things. But the next thing after strategizing is being proactive. That's the immediate step. One great source of job leads might come from your own network of friends and family, and you don't even know it. But how do you know if you don't put yourself out there? Everybody knows you went to nursing school. I mean, hard work is going to pay off, because trust me, if your family and friends love you enough, they've already told everybody, oh, my friend or my niece, she just graduated nursing school. They're so proud because ultimately they're living, the nursing dream vicariously through you. They're so excited for you. They probably already started campaigning and you don't even have a clue. And your friends and family, they know people. And if they don't, then they'll get the scoop from someone else that they know. And trust me, almost every nurse in America, anywhere, works somewhere that needs people. Trust me when I say this to you, every single nurse knows where they're hiring nurses. Very important. And if they don't need people, they know the right people to talk to, because nurses have friends. And many nurses go from one place to the other. They work in other places. So get yourself out there. So what about Facebook? What about LinkedIn? Join some groups that are specifically for the nursing community. And many people, they like social media and just kind of use it for talking to their friends and family. But lately, it's one of the largest platforms for recruiters, and that LinkedIn is amazing for nursing. that community really gives you an opportunity to build on and network with people. And that's the whole purpose. We want to put ourselves out there. We want to meet people. A lot of recruiters will even work with you regards to your resume. And for example, if you don't look the part or you don't have the right things, being in those networking, social media, LinkedIn groups specifically for the nursing community, for example. But there's also hundreds of nurses. I mean, thousands of them, and there's many organizations that are available just for new grads. You can go on Facebook or LinkedIn and type in, nurses or LPNs or RN new grads. There's thousands of groups, and so if you think about that, most of these groups often carry some kind of deal or developmental resource or material for new nurses if you're looking into more associations and memberships outside of social media. And so when you think about that, they're there specifically to help you and aid you in your actual job search. So think about this, because you may think, okay, well, I'm done with nursing school. I don't need to read all of this stuff. And I'm sorry to tell you, after a master's degree and a doctoral degree, I feel like nursing is just about reading. But when you're a new grad, there's so many resources out there. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to read something else. There's a lot of valuable information there. And believe me when I tell you, Google is not always a trusted source. Okay. So sometimes the communities, my point is that they have people that are invested in helping you. Some even have retired nurses and retired healthcare workers that are just jumping at the bit to help people that are entering the nursing field. So if you can't find anybody, definitely link up with me for sure. So you might want to also, again, tap into your former nursing school connections, your alumni, these are key. The alumni in itself, there's so many nurses that have graduated before you. Whether you know them or not, reach out to them. I'm telling you right now, this is one of the biggest things that you can do. I have so many people reaching out to me that are just recent graduates and asking for advice or opinion, getting my opinion about this or that and which route I should go. We love to give advice. So reach out to them. Call your alumni association first, or your nursing school as well. They may have a alumni for the nursing program. And the second important thing is to perfect your resume. And that's your pass to any kind of energy. And so what do I mean by that? Yes, I say energy. Energy is because energy is what really allows you to radiate to other things. What do I mean by that? It propels you and radiates you to interviews, to conversations, to opportunities. And so, yeah, if you think about that, it allows you to gain that strength and momentum to just starting out to seeing things for what they are, and also getting an opportunity doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a job or get an interview, but it means that energy will enable you to really start making things flow. It'll really start turning your wheels and give you the direction that you need to go. And you've heard the snowball effect. So once things get going, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then a lot of times what happens that even if you don't get an interview, or you get an interview and it doesn't result in a job, the nice part is that you generally have an even better job waiting for you. So it's not the time to get discouraged. Just embrace the energy for what it is, and be excited, because you're one step closer to finding out what it is that you really want. And then we want to research before we get going, though. We want to research how to craft a great resume. And maybe you need to hire a job coach or a professional resume writer that can help. But once you land that interview, we need to get prepared. So What we do then is that we research just a lot of the general interview questions and just practice how you might answer them. Okay, so we're going to answer the most common questions, and there's a few words that we're going to just go over. So, to answer those questions, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to review the job description. And the requirements that go with the job is also very important. So make sure you have that handy because sometimes you'll find the answers to so many of the things that we've just discussed. And then the second thing that you want to do is list the achievements that prove that you fit. Well, what do I mean by that? You take those requirements and then match them up with the achievements or match them up with the rationale to say that you fit. Yes, that's a key thing. I hope you wrote that down. So before you go in an interview, you already know that you're a fit. So I'll tell you some, for example, just the typical interview questions for a graduate nurse. Now, listen up. Here's the thing. The interviewer is not expecting you to know how to run a code. They're not expecting you to be a nursing supervisor on your first day. That's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for you to have all the right answers. Very important that you understand. You have to be genuine, be yourself. And that's the most important thing because ultimately, when you're in an interview, you're just having a conversation with somebody. You're already you already remember what you did in clinical. And then you need to kind of think back to like your funniest story. Think back to the worst patient and just whatever it is, be yourself and speak the truth. And don't necessarily worry about having the right answers. You can't have the right answer to every single question because there's no such thing. And if you don't know the answer to a question, you can always say, hey, I appreciate it. That's a great question. And I know I'm jumping the gun with regards to interview stuff, but I don't know the answer, but let me tell you what I think you're asking me. And I think what you're asking me is about teamwork. And I can tell you one thing. I know a bunch of things about teamwork. My last clinical assignment, I got a chance to be paired up with two different nurses, and it just made all the difference in the world because it gave extra hands and it also gave that extra guidance. And we got a lot of things done. We were a lot more efficient. And then we got a chance to collaborate at the end of the shift. Now, the best part about that is that I love working on a team. And then also, I showed that this was a very, very, well, in terms of really bringing out my best qualities, I realized that I can work as a team and I can also work as an individual. At the same time, in nursing school, we didn't have teams. So I was able to adapt very easily to working when I did a different clinical rotation and we didn't have a team structure. So I got very good at looking up information and preparing for the patients and so forth. And so I did very well there. So I guess what I'm saying is I can operate both as an individual and get my things done and be efficient, but also I can operate within a team. And so regardless of the structure, what system do you guys have? And do you expect the nurses to work individually or as a team? So now what you've done is you've answered the question, you've given examples, and then you've shared your strengths, and now you've asked a question. So you've engaged them in, even if they weren't paying attention and that was not their main focus, you've engaged them and now you're asking questions and it's back on them. So that's key. So don't worry about knowing the answer to every single thing. And I'm not sure if you caught that at the end, but remember, you just focused when you asked a question, you focused everything from yourself. And then you shifted that interview just now to them. Because now this is the point that you're controlling the interview. And that's our ultimate goal, because what happens is you want to get more information and more information because you want to get their answer. So instead of asking 10 or 12 questions at the end, because you're not going to remember everything anyway. You wrote down questions to ask, you Googled these things, but remember, you're asking like you're having a conversation, like you're chatting with your friend. And you're also just just conversing and getting a chance of getting a feel for what it is that they need. And when they give you that information, well, they'll say, oh, well, we work in a team. And they'll say, we work in clusters and so forth. That allows you now to internalize what they've said and connect to it emotionally just a little bit. And it also allows you to prepare your next answer based on the things that they do. So the most important thing is it allows you to realize whether or not it's for you or not. If you really didn't like working as a team and that's not your strength, you get a chance to feel that from the very beginning. Maybe you want to be in medical records or something, IT, and you don't really want to work with other people. You already know that that's not going to work for you because it allows you to govern yourself accordingly when you have that answer. And so let's just put a lot of this right out there. Let's talk about some of the questions that you're going to have. And these are key, so write them down. They're going to be asked no matter what. And the first thing is, with regards to questions on an interview, is why did you decide to become a nurse? This is important. Go back to your nursing philosophy and nursing school. And if you need to pull that out just to take a sample of that, make sure that you do that. Be ready to answer that question. Then also another thing before we get into specific questions, make sure that you truly believe in your nursing philosophy. And I don't mean your school philosophy, but most schools make you write, what is your philosophy? How are you going to be different? So make sure that you have that down. So first question they're going to ask, how do you deal with someone who's not satisfied with your patient care? They'll also ask, why do you want to work here? Why do you think you're the best person for this job? And then what do you think is your strongest skill? Maybe they'll ask you something like, how do you deal with the stress of nursing? They're going to almost always ask you that. And then, another question that we don't have here, and I want you to know that they'll say, give me an example of when you had a problem with a coworker or classmate. And how did you deal with conflict? Always going to ask you a question that's going to make you answer, how do you deal with conflict? Because they want to know if you deal with it head on or if you get so boiled down, because nursing is a stressful job. What outlets do you have? And so they'll ask you at the end, do you have any questions for us? Make sure that you have 2 or 3 questions written down. Don't just get the questions and say, I'll get them and answer them as I go. I mean, write them down ahead of time. Don't ask the same questions that they've already answered, however. And don't ask the same questions that people put on the internet, like the very first thing they go, what's the nurse to patient ratio? Don't ask that. Here's the deal. In nursing school, let me just tell you, nursing school, they say it's a 4-to-1 ratio. It's not. It's like almost 2 or 3 more than what nursing school says. So in your interview process, you want to know real things. You want to know, give me an example of what things specifically that you're trying to change and want to change. Ask that question. Could you give me an example of those things? So that way you can say, I want to have an example of those things so I can make sure that I'm the best fit. When you do that, what happens is you now again turn that entire thing over to them and allow them to give you the answers to what you're going to ask next. If you can't remember your questions, they'll say, well, here's the thing, right now we're working on staffing, we're understaffed and so forth. And we're working on our patient satisfaction scores. And now you can govern your questions. They're going to get you the job that you're applying for. If you just write this down, remember, ask them. And I'll repeat that because this is very, very important. You have to make sure you ask them what they're looking for, not just say, hey, well, what are you looking for? So understand that you can just simply say, okay, great. So that I want to make sure that I'm the best fit for this position. And I appreciate the time. Can you give me an example of what things on this unit or floor specifically that you're trying to change or that you want to change? What do you feel is the best part of the culture here? And they will respect that, and it'll also govern your answers here. And so a lot of times what they'll do is they'll give you the answers that you need already. You'll already determine if you want the job. Okay. And they want to know that you're not going to just pack up and run and cry or any of those things. They're asking you these questions because they want the right applicant. You need to ask them these questions because you need the right job. Just because you've gotten the interview and you're there doesn't mean that that's the best fit. It might just be the interview that helps you to get the interview that you really want. Okay, so now we've got our questions, and I'm offering to review whatever responses that you have. If you've got questions, I'm open to giving feedback. Take a photo of the questions, and then also take a photo of your question that you might have. Write it down on a piece of paper if you need to, and then send your responses. Send your responses to some of these things to Facebook or the questions that you might have. We're at the Network Nurse, and I'm gladly, excited to respond to any of the questions that you might have. And again, if you need one-on-one instruction, I'm happy to do that as well. Just we're talking about setting a goal and giving it a deadline, because every single thing that we've discussed is actually a goal. So if you decide to take a break, okay, listen, we're going to do this at a different time. No, put it down when you're going to actually start it, and know when you're going to do your job search, when you're going to do it, and then do your homework. Okay. How many hours do I have there? And how do I overcome my lack of experience? Let me line this up. And who am I going to contact from my database that's going to give me, whether it's the school alumni or a nurse that I know or a neighbor that knows 20 nurses because your neighbor gossips so much? It doesn't matter. Whoever it is, whatever it is, we need to give ourselves a deadline. That is going to just separate us from having a dream of getting this job and then getting an actual job, because we've set that goal. And again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a job here. So every single thing is task specific. So here are my personal proven steps to setting daily goals. Okay. And maybe a little new to some of the things that maybe you're maybe you've heard it already. Maybe we're not going to go into each individual one. Maybe it's something that you need to expand on, and we can do that one-on-one if you choose to do that. But again, write it down. And when you write something down and then you read it, you're attaching to it emotionally and logically, because not only are you writing it down, but you're also reading. So think about that. But the next thing also is to not only set goals, but to think positively. After we do that, because think about this, your brain only knows what you put inside of it. And if you put negativity versus positivity, then you already know the answer. Okay. Then we're going to leverage our strengths. We're going to avoid all distractions. We're going to take breaks and then practice self-care. Then understand that we learn from our experiences. Okay. And we earn rewards. So all we have to do is we have to do the things that we talk about. So we're talking about setting our daily goals. We're talking about making sure that we include all of these things. So we're done now for the first category. And I hope you found that very important and very helpful. And I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have regarding any of the topics that we have. Just message me at the Network Nurse. I'm happy to do that and take some time out. Okay, so this topic is for our new hires. And the very first and most important thing is that we have to nail the transition. This period, it takes a year to really learn a complete and complex job. But in nursing, we're seldomly given that just allotted a long amount of time to orientate or really learn. So it means that you've got to work twice as hard and you've got to do all the things. It's not just us, all the other 30 new hires, they have to do the same thing and they're going through the same thing. So we need to understand that transition is something that you have to embrace and you have to master. Very important. So, the number one thing that we should never, ever forget throughout our entire journey is, and while you're thinking about your transition, the very thing I want you to make sure that you maintain through all of this is to preserve your integrity. This is the best piece of advice that I can give you as a new nurse. And that is because you're going to come across so many situations that you might be given the opportunity to get the job or get noticed or stand up if you're in the process maybe of doing that, but you're also stepping on someone else's toe. You might want to think about that, or in the situation that that may not be the right thing, you need to really rethink that, because you need to think about what it means and what it entails, because gaining a few seconds onto your job, or a few seconds of any kind of like glory or quickness or anything, is not going to be worth it when you realize, listen, I've gained a lifetime of enemies, or maybe you've just gained bad character. So you don't want to do that. Don't take unnecessary shortcuts. It's very important that you do things the right way and you do them all the time. So that way it becomes a habit. So while you're doing that, practice being humble. Very important that, you have to recognize you're at the bottom of the food chain. So there's a lot of people, a lot of nurses that have been there the same amount of time, or they've been there longer than you. And sometimes most of the nurses have been there longer than you've been on earth. So you need to learn from those nurses and doctors and healthcare staff, and you need to gain their trust. And it's not going to be easy sometimes, I'll be honest with you, but the worst thing you can do is thinking and acting like you know everything. You have to be humble. You have to learn and ask questions, but ask questions to truly get to know the person and also whatever it is that you need to learn from your profession. And then once something goes wrong, don't play the blame game. It's very important. Give some sort of solution to the problem and then walk it through. Own up to whatever mistake that you might have made, because this is very important. Hopefully you're writing it down. Don't make things worse than what they really are, because there are a lot of things on the floor that might go wrong. And sometimes you just have to simply move on. I mean, you might have your worst shift ever and you really can't take that any further. You have to understand the next shift is coming and you have to get to that point, because life at the hospital is never dull. Never. It just doesn't happen. People, I mean, it's slow tonight, and they may say, and you hear everybody on the entire floor go, shh, don't jinx us, because you just don't know. You don't know if 3 or 4 minutes before your shift's going to end that you might have already given off report, and then something happens like a code or a fall or something. And that's the worst thing. And then maybe you spend 2 hours filling out fall paperwork at the end of your shift. You just don't know. And sometimes there's just not enough time to sit down and discuss. So don't fan the fire, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And any other place of employment, an office or whatever, there's going to be gossip. I mean, it's going to happen at the hospital. So just don't engage in that. I mean, it might make your shift a little bit bearable or funny, but believe me, when the whistle blows and the issue blows up, then you're going to get dragged right into it. And then it'll be too late for regrets at that point. Because, some people, you may feel they're in your corner. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm just saying sometimes people have this vested interest in making themselves look better. So just focus on your work and also focus on your patient, and then just choose to talk about positive, happy things with people. Don't talk about people, especially about your boss or so forth, because I guarantee you what will happen is that same person that you thought or think is your buddy, well, they're talking to such and such, and that person They may say, well, they should lighten up and this and that. Well, those people will go right back and tell the other people what you said. So make sure that the people will help you be better at work. And when they realize that you're a positive person and you're not negative and you're not going to surround yourself with gossip and drama and that you're not trying to point the blame, trust me, people will want to work with you and people will realize don't even come to you with it. So, lastly, understand that every employee at your facility has different roles, and they also have different pressures that come with their roles. So, maybe they're not working on your timetable, and understand that your stresses or responsibilities might not be theirs. So, you have to empathize and sympathize and understand that people that you work with, and you never know what someone's going through. You don't know if they're injured. You don't know if they have a domestic issue at home or issues with their children or dying family member. I mean, maybe they don't have much food to eat. So you just don't know someone's situation. So empathy, it doesn't just go and come with the care of our patients. It comes with the relationships that we have with the people we work with as well. So if you see an attending or doctor or coworker and it seems like maybe they're having a rough day, just kind of show them that you can be there and that they can count on you a little extra that day. So now let's talk about creating a sense of worth. Very important. So that sense of worth, now in our case of creating worth, please understand that in case you forgot, you have to really put on in our cases, especially as nurses, you have to put on a reminder to your phone or to your locker, anywhere that's easily visible. And what you have to remind yourself that what you're doing is noble as a nurse. And then you also need to remember what your why is. Because again, you're going to have tough days. And if you don't know your why you decide to become a nurse or why you're working, you need to figure that out. Okay. And why you are why you were purposed to be here. And purpose is something that I dive really deep into with so many people, but for the purpose of this webinar, and understand, I know you're saying this lady needs to hurry up and stop talking. Understand that saving people's lives is one of the most rewarding things and most rewarding jobs, if not the most, that a person can ever have. So keep that in mind. You need to make sure you remind yourself. And when a patient or a doctor or supervisor or a patient's family member praises you, write it down. You need to celebrate that. You need to share it with your family, because there's going to be a point where things might be rough and you're going to need that. You're going to need that reminder. So don't feel like that's pompous or arrogant, but you do need to celebrate those positive times. And then don't forget that you're human as well. You might get sick or you might get tired, and you may even make mistakes. And even when we try our very best not to do that, mistakes always happen. So remember that. It's important that you don't make repetitive mistakes, because then that's a whole different thing. But we do make mistakes. And with a job like ours, it's very easy to forget that our batteries get drained. So you have to surround yourself also with positive people, people that uplift you. And other people, they may not understand that. They might not understand your schedule. Maybe they don't understand the demands of your job as a nurse. They may respect it, but they might find it difficult and don't understand how it is that your life is revolved around helping others and why it's so demanding. So be with people that make you laugh, be with people that don't dwell on negativity. And we won't talk about people at work that do that, but don't talk about work all the time either. Get some separation and space. And also be one of those people that can listen and encourage other people as well. Do that for people. And so the greatest lie when somebody says is that they absolutely remember everything. We've already talked about writing things down. Your notebook is your very, very, very best friend. Very important. Have that down. Write in your notes that you need a notebook. And this webinar, you've probably forgotten about half the things we've already talked about unless you've actively taken notes. And hopefully you've done that, because this is going to give you so much value if you just implement 2 or 3 of the things. I can't tell you how many young nurses have said, oh man, this was just so valuable. If I would have just written some of those down, or I remember you said that to me, I probably would have been further along. So hopefully you're taking notes. Very, very important. We're going to cover some very detailed things. So when you're working in a fast-paced environment, sometimes you kind of forget to breathe. And that joke about nurses not eating or peeing, it's true. So you have to do yourself a favor. You've got to write things down, and you need to write down what your supervisor told you. You need to write down what the doctor instructed you to do. And also, most importantly, and people miss this, you need to write down what the patient requested of you. Very, very, very important, because you're moving and moving and you can't remember it all. It's not possible. And if you've written it down, you're not going to remember it. If you've written it down, you don't have to worry about forgetting it. So it's going to make you 10 times more powerful as a nurse, and it'll make you much, much better. Then you get in the habit of doing that. And so when you write down where the crash cart is, or you write down where the supplies are, you can't find them, or you write down who the doctor needs to contact, who's in charge of what, those things are going to help you. And it might be training for you for helping a new nurse, or you're precepting a nurse later on in the future, or when you can't just maybe draw your memory and you're like, wait a minute, where was that? I remember that. You just need to go back to your little notebook. So write down something that you just learned. Write down your thoughts about a procedure, your feelings about something that you heard or saw on your shift. Do it not only for remembrance, but also for reflection, because this is also something, let me tell you, it's a secret a lot of people don't master. And I'm going to encourage you, your first year as a nurse, your first 2 years as a nurse, and you may say, I don't have extra time to do anything. Write this down. Get your paper. Make sure you have enough paper. I'm going to encourage you that you need to, every single shift, every single day, you need to, for the first year, anytime that, especially when you work a shift, and maybe you even include the days that you're not working. And I say every single day because there's value in it. And obviously, you're not going to write down, I don't know what happened at work when you're off. You're going to write down when you're working what happened. And you're not going to write down patients' names or any protected health information, but write down what happened, good or bad, especially your mistakes. And how do you solve that? And what was the recourse? And how do you prevent it next time? That mistake is not going to define you. But when you get a chance to go back and say, hey, okay, I remember what I did here. I tried to do 2 patient medications at the same time and I got confused, and so forth. So even on your days off, again, I said before, it's like, man, I picked up an overnight shift. I'm used to working during the day. My paycheck was great, but I didn't recover for 2 days after. And then I missed out on this. I missed out on that. Or maybe you write down, I was really tired today. I didn't eat a whole lot. Those things that you write down are going to help you along the way track your growth. So very important that you keep a journal. So then the next thing is you're going to use a planner. Every day, there's so many things that you have on your plate. I mean, at your best, you need to make sure that you are simply organizing your day. This is very vital. You might be what I call busy being busy. So in order to avoid that, just spend 5 to 10 minutes just visualizing your day and scheduling it. Now, remember what is our goal? And so you need to remember that in your scheduling. Give yourself a word of affirmation, whether that's something like, I am the best nurse because I listen to my patients. I am thoughtful. I take an extra 2 minutes with my patient, and then say, what's the one thing I can do for you today? Now, I've given you a secret there. It's not only going to boost your confidence, but it's also going to show your supervisor that you're under control. So if somebody, let's say, for example, they suddenly ask you, hey, who's available to take a patient in 3? I mean, everybody kind of looks around like, who's going to take the patient? But look at your planner. You've already done that, and it becomes a habit after a while. And in less than a second, you know whether you're available or not. You know if you're at your max or what your thought process is. And most of the time, you don't control it. But understand that while others are still trying to remember what their schedule is like, that's important, because you already know what's your schedule. It's no different than your work schedule. If you know you have certain days off, your shift schedule is the same exact thing. So they're trying to look and see, let me see what's my patient load. Let me see what my patients are. You've already grabbed that opportunity. And then people are going to say, man, this nurse they're always willing to help. Jumps right in all the time, because your visualization and preparation before your shift even happened and during your shift at the same time is top notch above everybody else. Then let's set up and take the time to understand your limits. Now, when you're new in a workplace, take your time. Observe people. Don't just jump in and say yes right away to everything. Get to know what role each person plays and meets, and be sensitive to what they might not be telling you. If they don't like being asked too many questions, or they prefer to spend their breaks on their own, take note of what kind of working style your managers or supervisors have. Do they like delegating or prefer you to ask for an assignment? Do they prefer you to take initiative? So the safest thing is for you to start offering your help here and there, and then notice what they say yes to and what they say no to. And then you're going to gain a little bit of trust that way. And it's easier for you to ask for bigger responsibilities if you're that kind of person, and if you're in that kind of environment that you're able to. But at the same time, though, don't compromise what you worked hard for just to show off, or asking for extra things and that you're not even confident about, or may not even be able to do. Because the bottom line is, be above average. That's my next key, is that don't just show up. Look around for ways that get you involved and establish a reputation for being proactive. That's important. And there's a few ways to do this. First, you can consider volunteering. Maybe there are lots of shared governance committees that you can be a part of, nursing practice council type of things. And then attend events that are outside your facility. If that's your thing, do that. Very important. You might even provide some solutions to simple issues that maybe you've been noticing at work. Maybe it's to be a better file organizer, or adding labels to cabinets and shelves. Whatever it is, these opportunities can kind of help you connect with people within and outside of your facility, or just within your floor. So now we're diving into securing our mental and emotional and physical wellness. And yes, you can love work and still have a life outside of it. And you ask how? Well, first, before starting your job, remember, if you enjoyed working out or going out with your friends or shopping or reading books or whatever it is that you enjoy doing, you still need to find time to do at least one of those things. Because yes, you're going to be tired. Yes, you're going to feel exhausted at the end of your shift. Yes, you're going to not want to do anything else, but you have to have a normal life. So don't use your job as an excuse to pass out on those things that you enjoy. But at the same time, you have to listen to your body. Very important, because if you're really exhausted, whenever you can, you need to sleep. Sleep in. Choose to eat healthy. Don't just grab whatever is convenient, because the bottom line is that you can't perform well in your job if you're not at your best. Next, while sending home, let's just say, you are working with a critical care patient, and that might feel like the most wonderful thing. Losing a patient, on the other hand, can be very heart wrenching. And then people say, hey, you'll get used to that, or maybe you won't. Because now we're talking about mental health. Because if there's a profession that's going to give you lots and lots of emotions, that's definitely nursing. So you need to check with your facility if they provide counseling for their staff. And if you need to go, or you need to have any of those services, you need to, maybe they don't have them at your job. You can easily go for guided meditations online whenever you need to, whenever you need an outlet. Just make sure that you kind of look at those things ahead of time. So we've already talking about rest. We've already talking about taking care of ourselves and an outlet. And know that there's another avenue that you might look at as well. It might help to get a trusted friend or family member. Maybe it's a buddy that is going to just check to make sure you've eaten or drank enough water or taken a break while you're on your shift. Maybe it's a coworker. And I know at work, they usually assign you like a buddy, and you say, hey, you cover this person's lunch and you cover their patients and so forth. I get that. But also at the same time, you can use that same buddy to say, we're going to really look out for each other to make sure that we're getting our appropriate breaks and we're just taking a moment to decompress. Can you just take 10 minutes to watch out for my patients? I just need to quit. And I don't mean 1,000 smoke breaks. That's not just the same. And that might be an avenue and a release for you. But I mean, just to step back and not do anything else, because you'll need that. And so, with all the different technologies and latest medications, sometimes I think we just forget about basic care. And that basic care can help all patients heal. And see, the body, it responds to what the mind feeds it. So, one thing that I want to talk to you about is each morning or each evening, we can talk to our patients, or whenever we're working in shift, and get them involved in planning their time. Think about what makes them feel good. And then also think about, when patients feel good about themselves and their body, just like you, they're a lot more accepting to their course of treatment. And whether you are, maybe a few minutes late on something, aside from medication, when you give patients this sense of dignity, they become easier to cooperate with you. So those couple minutes that you're running late don't, seem very long at all. And so you need that. And one of my favorite authors was Maya Angelou. And she said, they may not remember your name, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And that's true. So the next thing is your charting system. When you're using whatever facility that you're working in, they have a specific charting system, and you need to know that by heart. So you might have been taught differently at nursing school, or had a different experience in your clinicals. It doesn't matter. What's important is that you master this one that you're currently using. Don't say, well, I wish it was this, or I had this in nursing school, I wish it was. The bottom line of it is, it's not. Know this one inside and out. Take it on as a challenge. Make that a goal that you master it. And most people are just happy to keep their job. And so only a very few people commit to mastering it. So if you want to set some goals, make this one of your goals and make it your business to learn every single thing about this system. You want people coming to you to ask you how to do it, because of the fact that it is going to save you so much time. So spend a few minutes each shift, even if you know enough to get through your shift. spend 5 minutes to learn something new that you didn't know about it. And so, regardless of the system that you're using, the principles apply to every single one. And so, this next thing is documentation. It happens while it's happening. So never chart something that's ahead of time that you haven't done, because really there's going to be a high probability that something is going to suddenly maybe pull you away, or a patient calls you for something. You're going to forget what you're supposed to do for that particular patient. And remember the rule of thumb that if it's not charted, then it wasn't done. So make sure you take your charting very seriously. And you're free to create your own strategy as long as it doesn't violate any regulations, because you might prioritize the absolute needs, most important needs first, and it may be a little bit differently than Flores bar or whatever. But make sure the bottom line is that you chart what you need to chart first, and then do the other checks later. Okay, so prioritize the needs. If it's, I need to do just an overall, basic assessment first, and then I need to do a head to toe, whatever it is, do it as it goes. And my personal suggestion to you is chart at least once per hour. As soon as you take report, usually the handoff is going to be in the patient's room. What my recommendation would be to you is, after you've done that and you've made your notes, you right away go in and make a note, or you do whatever's charting and say, the status of the patient, I got a handoff at this time, and so forth. Okay. It just makes things a little bit smoother, and it builds a regular routine. And that way you're not just getting overwhelmed at the end of your shift when it's time to go and you've got like an hour of charting. It frustrates you, and you're never going to remember, and you might just have to get back home quickly. So it also will help you memorize things that you need. And it's just a general routine at this point. Just a side note, it might help you to memorize codes for the system that you're using. Code blue, code brown, whatever it is. And be creative. You can look some things up. There's some funny jokes and memes and things going on for code. So when you're charting, though, make sure that you're objective, and make sure that you quote anything that your patient says, or something that's important that you heard, in quotation marks, because there's no room in your charting for opinions or comments. Because, if a patient was rude to you, you're not going to say that patient was rude. You can simply say, the patient said, in quotes, "Get out of my room. I don't want you here." Lastly, you want to chart with the future in mind. So in case that patient returns to the hospital with a clear record, you're helping them and the future team really assess the course of their medication and their treatment, and they can read your notes and so forth. And so it makes things better and faster. So what that means is you can include, patient has difficulty doing these things, I provided added education and encouragement for this patient to do this or that. So we're going to wrap things up. And I know I've given you a lot of information there, but I want to talk to you a little bit about something that's key that people really, really overlook. And that's about being a mentor and serving as one, and also having a mentor. So this is one of the secrets to my success, because of the many mentors that I've had. And as a mentor and a mentee, when you have that relationship, it's always beneficial, because both people have an opportunity to learn from each other. And this is vital to you as a young nurse. So if you agree on being someone's mentor, then take that very seriously, because you can make a positive impact on someone else's life, because it makes them feel valued. It makes them feel respected. It makes them feel worthwhile. And the same thing goes back when you're doing that and you're mentoring someone, it makes you feel the same way. And this is a perfect avenue for just sharing your passions on the job. And also, now I don't want you saying that my passion is to open up a food truck. Let's go downstairs right now. Obviously, you can't work on another job when you're in another job, but understand that sometimes you might just need a minor vent, or you might, maybe you need to listen to how rough their day was, or you can just count on your mentee, or maybe you can cheer someone else up. These are important. Have meaningful conversations, and it gives you a little bit of a boost, maybe a help to kind of perform your job better, to know that someone's in your corner. And also, it helps to just foster much better relationships. And that's important for you as a new nurse, to make sure that you have great relationships, because ultimately the bottom line of it is that you're trying to become the best possible nurse and person that you can become. So we're done for this webinar, and that was exciting. I am hoping that you guys had an absolute good time and you took some notes down. And if you've got some questions, please go ahead and ask them here in the chat. We're going to allot for a few minutes for discussion, and I'm happy to answer the questions that you have. I'll post some of these. The very first question right now is, how long did it take you to land your first job as a nurse? Well, it didn't take me a long time at all, because I was a nurse's assistant, like we talked about before. So I had an opportunity to work with the same company. I was a nursing assistant, and then a medication aide, and then I became an LPN, and then I became an RN, and so forth. So I had an opportunity to work with the company from the very beginning. And that's almost always, especially if you have a great relationship with your employer, that's almost always the best way to start your nursing career. Okay, let's see. I'll take another question here. Let's see, I'll post it. How did you balance having a family and being a nurse? Wow. Well, I don't think that that's a past tense. That's actually a current tense, and using many of the strategies that we just talked about today. The very first thing, though, is that I always take time when I wake up, just to decompress and to do the same routine each and every day, get my spiritual self, all my routines going, my mental things going, and just take time, because again, the job is very, very demanding, and so is your family. And so you have to balance these things. And just like you have to create a work strategy, you've got to create individual strategy, and that includes your time. That includes your time with it, whether it's reading or studying, whether it's working your shift, whether it's having time for your patients, and having time for your kids. All of those things, it's a strategy as well. And so if you're prepared ahead of time, it just makes it just that much easier. All right, so I'll take another question here. Let's see. What was my career breakthrough? Wow. Well, a lot of times people, they go to school and they're so excited. They get in nursing school, and then they just say, I can't wait to get this nursing job. But understand that I think that breakthrough really is about, understanding that it's not just getting that job, it's keeping that job and becoming the better person. So just like I just said before, I started out as a nurse's aide and then a medication aide. And so my career breakthrough was simply learning that I can continue to operate in the passions that I have outside of nursing, but also that I can advance within nursing. When you learn all the opportunities in nursing, you understand how many possibilities there are. Whether it's education, whether it's clinical, it doesn't matter. There's so many things that you can do. And I think the breakthrough just came with the mindset that I could take care of patients at the same time as really taking advantage of all the opportunities that nursing provides. All right, let's see. Very good. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us on the webinar. Hopefully it added some value to you and you took good notes. If you need me, please visit our website and visit social media channels. And also, please be aware that If you go to www.thenetworknurse.com, you can get all the information. We have live chats, we have webinars, we have so many things that we have. I want to leave you with one quote. It's success isn't a product of a magic moment, it's earned. So remember that in your nursing journey. Thanks for sharing time with us. Have a great day. I'm inviting all of you to our next live chat. That's happening November 6th, 2020. We've invited 2 speakers. They're phenomenal, and we're going to hear them tell us all about nurse education. See you there.